On this week's show, I speak to Renee Robin, a renowned photographer and friend of over 6 years. We talk about her journey into photography, as well as her thoughts on AI, all that and more. This is the Photography Junkie. Hello and welcome to another episode of The Photography Junkie. I'm your host Jay, and on this week I've got a bit of a special one for yourself, and I'm not talking about the photographer. She's one of my favourite photographers that I follow, and we actually did this about 6 years ago, and she's been very kind enough to accept my offer to do a redo. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome onto the show Renee Robin.
Hello. Thanks for having me back.
No problem at all. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How is everything going in your world?
Yeah, busy. Just starting my new day job in the commercial photography world as an in-house photographer and marketing team leader.
Awesome.
As well as my obviously this and my studio as well. So try and keep busy.
I was going to say, yeah, so you're super bored with not much to do. Got it.
Yeah. I find lots of time. How's the busyness for yourself?
It's good. It's a little all over the place right now, but it's all right. Yeah.
So for the two people out there that don't know who you are, who are you?
Well, I'm a Canadian photographer and digital artist, working largely in like the commercial and tech sector.
Brilliant. And started life as a model.
Yes. Yeah. That's 25 years ago this year.
Wow. And what created that shift into the photography?
I was so bored. I was so bored with modeling. I was just like, if I see another photo of somebody's face, I swear to God, like, I just don't care. I had this point and shoot camera and it had like a little flower setting on it. And I later learned that setting is called macro, but I could take pictures of things really close up. And that was so exciting for me because, I could do like the typical stuff of like water droplets on grass, water droplets on flowers, like, like it's dumb shit. But it was just such a reprieve from the stuff that I had been doing for the previous 11 years that I was just like, I don't care anymore. This is so nice. I love this. And then that turned into a whole thing.
So what was it that actually grabbed you and sort of pulled you into the world of the crazies?
Well, so it wasn't planned. I always tell people always ask, like, how did you get into photography full time? And I always tell them, like, every other way is easier than the way I did it. I like to ride and build motorcycles. And so what I did, I was riding to work one day and I got hit and run over. And when I stopped sliding, I was supposed to be walking in Fashion Week in like 3 weeks. And I just like took a deep breath in, deep breath out, like laying there on the side of the road going like, well, I guess this changes everything.
And how long were you in sort of recovery for?
I mean, on one hand, all these years later, I'm still technically in some form of recovery, but the initial recovery was pretty rough. I mean, I didn't walk for 6 months. Then it took me 2 more years to figure out how to like basic run, like just do quick steps in succession. But in that time, while I was learning to, move my toes again and get my foot to respond, because I just had the one leg run over. It was, yeah, I know. It could have been both though. But yeah, in that time, I would spend, 8 hours a day in physio, and the rest of the time I would spend doing, teaching myself digital art.
And did you jump straight into Photoshop at that point, or?
Yeah. So I'd been using Photoshop since Photoshop 7, like not CS7, but 7. So back in 1997, I started playing with Photoshop, but I'd only ever been using it to like make fonts and like create textures. And like, I wasn't really applying it to a lot of photography, like the occasional photo of friends or something I kind of muck about with, but nothing too crazy. But then, when I couldn't walk, I couldn't get out into the world. So I had to learn how to bring the world to me. And so digital art was that like plug for me.
And a lot of people, when they go through sort of that sort of level of disconnection from the world due to pain and stuff, it can make you go into sort of a darker place, and a lot of your images can sort of skew onto that side. How do you think that came in terms of an influence for you?
I try to not think about it too often because then it makes me go to weird places. I mean, that like dark flavor has always been there though. Like when I was early on, a bunch of friends were saying, oh, your work looks really inspired by Frank Frazetta. And I was like, who the hell is Frank Frazetta? Because I was ignorant. And then finally I went one day and I just Googled his name and I looked and I was like, oh, Frank Frazetta. Like, oh yeah, I love that guy's work. And I was like, that flavor for the darker aesthetic, it had always been there. Like, for example, my first horse growing up, because I grew up on a farm. My first horse, he was a black horse because he was, and I named him Casper because he was a ghost. And everyone's like, oh, but Casper's supposed to be a white horse. And I was like, no, but I want my horse to be named after a ghost.
Did that kind of show up like during other sort of school art projects and things like that?
That kind of like darker flavor of stuff? Kind of. But photography, I think, really was where it was allowed to flourish.
And so you've moved on from shooting raindrops on leaves and moved into people. At what point did you start to transition into that?
Yeah, basically when I got run over, I was just like, okay, this is, because I'd been taking photos of friends up to that point, and then it was just like, I have to pay my bills. How are we going to do this? And so I just like knuckled down and I was just like, okay, well, we can't shoot weddings because we can't walk. We can't shoot families because we can't walk. I didn't want to compete with my friends either. Like I'd worked in the modeling industry for so long and I didn't want to, not that I was any threat to my friends who were photographers, because let's be honest, they'd been doing it for so long and had just been getting started, but I didn't want my friends as competition, and also because no one would hire me because they would be better than me. So I just tried like carving out this little niche of, work that hopefully people would find interesting, that not many other people were doing, that I could get hired for.
So you just got off the didn't want to be a competition to your friends. Yeah.
So yeah, I just tried to make a career out of something that not many people were doing. And that basically, because I had all these limitations, it was like, okay, if I have these limitations, what does that mean that I can do with those limitations? Because I always have this theory of, if some doors close, another one has to open somewhere. So I'm always looking for, when doors shut around me, where something else is an opportunity.
And how did you go about sort of pitching that work to other people?
I don't even remember anymore. It's been so long. I mean, it was all the tactics, basically everything because it was desperation. So you just try everything. Like there's nothing motivates like, oh my God, how am I going to pay my bills?
And you do a lot of composite work in Photoshop. Would you say that's the bulk of your work, or has it sort of evened out over the years?
I think it depends on the year. Some years I do a lot of compositing work, and then other years, like I will go 18 months without doing much compositing at all. So it massively fluctuates all over the place, and I haven't been able to really predict it, which it would be nice if I could, but haven't figured that one out yet.
And so for those people that don't composite usually, do you have like a library that you've built up? Any tips for building that library?
Yeah, so I basically I have many terabytes of background footage. And I basically just photograph everything with the idea of how would I use this in a composite? Because there's two ways to take photographs, in my opinion. There's taking photographs so that the scene itself is enough, whether there's a person there or not. And then the scene speaks for itself. And then there's taking photographs for pieces to be in composites. which have a very different purpose. So you have to, in my case, I have to photograph them thinking like, okay, if I was to do a composite with this, where would I place the person? So I put the focus point where I would place them. I'm thinking about angles, I'm thinking about lens, I'm thinking about aperture. And then thinking about in the compositing brain, how do I file these and how would I use these in the real world?
So when you go to actually creating that library, do you have them organized by aperture or?
No, just location.
Just location. Okay.
Just location. Yeah.
And how do you tell the difference between what's going to be an overall image and what's going to be set pieces, so to speak?
I think because if there's something that's going to be like let's say like a ground piece, right? Then I'm either photographing that in a sequence that I'm going to stitch together. So when I look at the files, I can be like, oh, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is something that I had planned on stitching because maybe I didn't bring a wide enough lens that day, right? And so I'm going to stitch that, which changes obviously how it looks and everything. But and then like pieces that are elements, I'm photographing them so that they're easy to extract. So hopefully there's either like a kind of like a gray, cloudy sky or something that like, I'm not trying to cut out flowers next to like a stone wall or something, because that sucks.
So in terms of the actual photoshopping side of it, sort of how much of a control freak are you?
I used to be a lot more of a control freak than I am now. Now I am far more willing to let the software do a lot of the heavy lifting for me. But also because the software is finally starting to get good enough. Like Photoshop's Refine Hair tool is actually pretty good now. Like the select subject is pretty good. It's still not perfect, but it's definitely like it used to be. If I used an auto select tool, for example, I would spend just as long fixing the mask as I would if I had just done it by hand initially, right? So now, yeah, I'm definitely learning to kind of like let go a lot more. Even with like color grading and stuff, I was never really one to use actions or presets made by other people, but every now and then I'm like, actually, that is the right tool for the job, So I've kind of just learned to let go a little bit more, which I think is healthy.
And does that also extend to camera selection as well?
I'm still running with old cameras because, to be honest, they just still work. I have never been someone who likes to upgrade my equipment until I actually need to. And what I'll do then is for the first little while is I'll just rent different cameras to see which one that I like and which one I think will actually do.
So you haven't been sort of pulled into the mirrorless world yet then?
No, but I do see the benefit of it. The Canon R5 is a beautiful piece of equipment and it does really, really, really nice work. I did upgrade. I mostly still shoot with a Canon 5D Mark III, but I did buy myself a used 5DSR, and I love that thing for taking background plates because it's so like they're just so big. Like it's more than double the size of my normal files, so I have a lot more to work with. But then of course I have to store the damn thing, so it's a lot more hard drives. But one thing that I noticed that I love and hate about the 5DSR is because it's such large megapixels. When you've blown focus, you really know you've blown focus. Like there's no guesswork like at all. And so in that regard, it's very unforgiving. So I've learned to become like a far better photographer because this camera just like, it's either correct or it's completely screwed up. Like there is no in between. And I find that to be very interesting and a great challenge and also sometimes very frustrating.
So are you, in terms of sort of technical photographer wise, are you the sort of the person that's focus and recompose, or do you use techniques such as like hyperfocal distance?
It depends on what I'm shooting, really. So sometimes I'm very technical and other times it's like focus and recompose. It really, again, it super depends on the job and what I'm doing or the purpose of what I'm shooting photography for that day. So like, let's say, I was out in Cape St. Mary's in Newfoundland last week, and I was photographing birds out there. And I like to photograph birds simply for the challenge of how hard it is to photograph birds in flight. I'm not a birder. I'm not I think the birds are beautiful, but I don't care about like how, rare this type of, bird is versus this one and like what time of year they're there. Like I just enjoy the challenge of trying to get a sharp eye on birds in flight.
For me,
And
it was a very similar experience. I used to shoot a lot of boxing.
yeah,
Um,
I think.
and when you're shooting boxing, any punch can be the knockout punch.
Yeah.
So you're coming away from each match with like 3,000 shots, and
Yeah.
but I understand the want to dogs talking. I understand the want to be able to nail down the that ultimate shot of the usually tracking in motion is almost like shooting.
Yeah. And I do. I also shoot firearms as well. Not at living things. I basically just like to punch holes in like pieces of metal and paper that are far away. That's my only interest. But it's still like, having to predict where the thing is going to be, and then trying to understand. Like, I have to sit back, with birds, for example. I only photograph birds. I don't actually like shoot birds. But you have to like sit back and watch the behavior and go like, okay, where are they going? Where are the interesting parts where interesting behavior is starting to happen? And then you kind of try to predict what the behavior is going to do. And I find all of those things, plus shooting it with the 5DSR, which again is so unforgiving, like it's either I've got it or it's wrong, is such a great exercise. And I really enjoy that. Like, that's one of the things with photography that still, like, quote unquote, sparks joy, like it's just fun to challenge myself in a way that there is no outcome. Like, nobody cares if I get a great bird shot. There's nobody paying me for it. There's no nothing. Like, I get to just do that just because it's fun. And that is really nice after, I've been working in this industry for 25 years now. So it's like, it's nice to have these little corners of photography that can still be just for me.
So what in the world of birding then, I know it's quite common to actually fit a red dot sight to the camera.
Oh, I haven't done that. That's a super good idea.
So that you've actually got more wider view on it. And then basically you'd line up your red dot with your lens.
What?
And then they actually exist now. Like, you can get cold shoe adapters.
Oh my God. That's so awesome. Birders are crazy. When I was in Antarctica in January for the first time. And of course there were tons of birders on the trip. And I was just so fascinated by them. I was just like, wow, you guys are like a whole other species of people. Like, they're so different, and then there's the birders who are photographers, and then there are the birders who are just there just to see. They have a checklist of birds that they really want to see, and they're just like checking off that list.
That's when you stop being a birder and become an ornithologist.
Yeah. Which is great too. Like, I mean, it was just so interesting to watch them, and it was, I don't know, it was kind of like going to the people zoo, because I was just like, wow, I've never met people who are so keen on birds that they're going to spend this much money to go and not even photograph the bird just to see it, and there's something like kind of inspiring about that, where you don't have to record it for posterity. You saw it, and that's enough. And that's very cool.
There's people in my town, and I've yet to bump into one to speak to them to find out exactly what they're doing, but they love taking pictures of buses.
Oh,
so
interesting.
Every so often, I'll get public transport and be going along, and there'll be a guy on a corner with a camera taking a picture of a bus in exactly the same way that you'd expect, like a train spotter, or just specifically the buses in the town. I'd expect it with the trams in the town, because we've got some trams that are like 120 years old and stuff, but like modern buses.
Well, because I mean, one day a friend of mine was telling me about this type of photography where, it literally is just photographing modern life, because eventually it's not modern life anymore. It'll be 60 years in the past, and those photographs actually do matter,
Yeah, I mean, this town's got a massive history in photography. We've got the tower and everything that's 140 odd years old, and which is basically like the UK's version of the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
And I've shown you sort of in messages as well, the sort of light festivals and stuff that we do, which is great fun.
I do love the light festivals in the UK. A friend of mine took me to a festival of lights in Durham, and that was so wonderful. And it was right around Christmas, so it was like Christmassy, but it wasn't Christmas yet, it wasn't the full on Christmas markets. It was November, and it was just absolutely wonderful. Like I had such a great time and I froze my ass off, but it was nice. Yeah,
well, we have something called the Golden Mile, and basically it's for 4 miles along the seafront. There's just tons and tons of lights as you travel along.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's so fun.
So speaking of travel, you do a fair bit of it.
Yeah, well, so pre-COVID, I did a lot of it. I haven't done much since COVID. Yeah, it's. I'm hoping I can get back into it in the next year or so. That would be lovely, but not to the amount that I was doing before. That was so much. Like when COVID kind of shut everything down, I was just so ready for a break. Because it had been so many years of just like, 50, 40 flights a year. And I was just like, I need some time. And then the universe was like, boom, you've got it. I was like, no, too much time.
So sort of knowing you as long as I have, I've never really sort of pictured you as like the trust fund baby sort of thing. I've always pictured you very much one of the rest of us just trying to do their best. How do you afford it? Scraping it. Yeah. How do you manage to afford the work trips?
So I mean, well, they're normally work trips, right? So work pays for them. That's the biggest one. Like if I was just paying for them all out of pocket all the time, that would be a lot. And totally impossible. But I mean, like, so that's on the flip side, like I don't have kids. That's like one of the biggest things is, I have a lot of friends who have kids and they're just like, oh my God, how do you do it? And I'm just like, I have no dependence. I mean, I have 2 cats now. One of them that chose me in COVID, she just broke into my house and was like, I live here now. And she's this like starving little kitten. And I was like, okay. So now I have like dependence that I didn't have before that I have to kind of consider. But I mean, it's like, okay, if you have this much money every single month, where do you want to spend it? And so in my case, it was like, all right, how do we cut down the daily expenses as much as humanly possible so that we can make these like opportunities happen in other places? And so, it means saying no to a lot of things to be able to say yes to other things.
And you do a lot of commercial photography. How did you sort of land in that side of things?
In 2013, I went to a convention and I realized like, oh, there's people here that will hire me for jobs if I just meet them. That's interesting. And so that was kind of how I applied myself, because I know there's some people who like they can write great emails or they can, they can do all this great stuff online, and that is not my superpower. I completely suck at like that side of things. Like if someone writes me and they're like, hey, can you put together like a pitch doc for X? I'm hiring that out because I'm so bad at it. Like I'm so bad. I have a bunch of skills in life and that is not one of them. And I know that I do my best work face to face. And so I would just start, basically what kind of companies would I like to work with? And then just start like knocking on doors face to face as best as I could. And, 9 out of 10 times it's a no. And then every now and then you get a yes. And then it just kind of like, you just slowly build. It's not fast by any stretch of the imagination. There's probably faster ways to do it, but this is the way that I find works best for me.
And are you just turning up with a portfolio or trying to schedule meetings or?
Yeah, both. Yeah. Making sure that I have a portfolio and then trying to schedule meetings. Yeah.
So when it comes to planning a commercial shoot with a client, how does the sort of general process of that come together?
The biggest difference between commercial shoots is whether or not there's an art director on board. So if there is an art director on board, you're basically like, I find I'm just like I'm a cog in a machine. So marketing is going to tell the art direction team what they want. Art direction team is going to tell us what they want. And then we all just like go off and be our little machine parts, and we do as we're told, and we do our best to deliver what the client is looking for. that's very common. And I like that part too, because it's like, there is somebody saying like, hey, we need you to do X. And I go, okay, cool. I can do X. I can do this, and this. And then, but what if we tried this? And then they'll either say yes or no. And then there's the other types of commercial jobs where there isn't an art director and you're basically like, the art director. And then, they'll come to you and they say like, hey, we're looking to do blank. How do we do this? And I go, okay, awesome. So, then I'm researching the company, trying to figure out, what their branding is and what necessarily they want to change it to, if it even involves rebranding at all, or like making sure that it's consistent with what they're looking for.
And with the first style where you are the cog in the machine, does that sort of turn you almost into a translation device between the brief and what's captured?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I mean, that's commercial photography anyways, is that, yeah, we are a translator to take something that is not real and turn it into something that is real. That is the whole job, which is fun sometimes. I like it.
And how do you deal with the that's not right?
Oh, you just, okay, cool. How do we make this right? That is a big part of really letting go of your ego. And when I was younger, sometimes I had a hard time with that because I would just be like, what are you talking about? This looks great. But it's not what they want. So you have to get out of your own way and just be like, awesome. Okay, no problem. Let's what changes do we need to make? Is it the pose? Is it the styling? Is it the lighting? Like in what ways, how can we make this work? Is it the lens choice? But I mean, if you have a good art direction team and you have a really good, meetings ahead of time and everything like that, it shouldn't be hard to be able to deliver exactly what they're looking for.
And do you prefer like a storyboard approach? Or?
Yeah. So some people prefer having storyboards. I like having storyboards. That is really nice. That is the most effective way. If you have like basically a mood board and then a storyboard, and it's just like, sweet, awesome. I know exactly what I have to do. And like those are definitely the most time efficient shoots. And then sometimes they're not necessarily storyboarded, but you have a mood board. But yeah, the more pre-work that's done, the easier being on set becomes, and then the retouching as well.
Goes back to the older 7 Ps, the proper planning, preparation, prevents piss poor performance.
100%. That is exactly correct. Yeah. Yeah.
So of the two types, which do you prefer?
I like both. I find if I do too much of either one, I start to go crazy. And so then I start to just kind of get squirrely, and I'm just like, I need to change things up. So yeah, I enjoy both in moderation.
I heard you refer to it once, the whole difference between the whole ego thing as you like to separate church and state.
Yes. Yeah. Very important.
So that's the more sort of commercial side of things. What would you say the pitfalls of being a commercial photographer are for somebody that's looking to get into it?
I mean, it can be very challenging dealing with agencies, or dealing with really terrible art direction, or like very bad producers or production teams. Like anybody who's worked in the commercial space knows that if you have a really great producer, they're worth their weight in gold. Oh my God. Or like a really great art direction team. And fortunately now there's so much competition out there now for those positions that most of the time you're going to wind up with someone who knows what they're doing. It's not very often anymore I run into someone where you're just like, oh man, this is going to be tough, because they think they know what they want, but they don't actually know what they want, which means that when you're getting to set and you're just like, you're delivering exactly what was talked about, and they're going like, oh, I don't really know that can get very frustrating very quickly. And you have to really take a step back and just be like, I am literally here to deliver what it is that they're looking for. Take a breath. If they want to change it all right now, we're going to change it all right now, because ultimately, like, that is what I'm here to do. But yeah, younger me really struggled with that.
And how do you think AI is playing into this now? Have you started to experience people coming to you with AI images?
I've mostly just lost work to AI, actually. Yeah, I mean, being a composite artist, I've lost a ton of work to AI now. Yeah, and I haven't lost any of the really big jobs yet, but it's the shrapnel gigs in between that most of those disappeared because they can get what they want out of AI, obviously cheaper and obviously faster. Like I can't deliver the quality that AI can, especially in the time frame that AI can. It's completely impossible. So,
and you've started to play with it recently as well.
Yeah, so I have been playing with the AI stuff because I believe I have to know my enemy. So I have been playing with AI for quite a while.
Sun Tzu, is it?
Sorry?
Art of War.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, so I really did start learning about it quite early on, even though, like, you know, despite a lot of my reservations and hesitations and everything else. But I mean, it's fascinating. It's a great cure for blank page syndrome, where you're just like, I have this general idea, but I don't really know exactly how it should look. And you can kind of just like punch in a few things and just go like, well, that's actually not too bad. I could take a piece from here, I take a piece from here. You know, like it's in some ways, in that regard anyways, the blank page cure syndrome thing, it's more interesting to me than just scrolling Pinterest for, you know, 4 hours trying to find something I haven't seen 100 times before and that everyone else hasn't seen 100 times before. So in that regard, I think AI has a lot of like potential. I am just, it just boggles me that every single time I think about AI images and AI video and AI music, that where it is right now is as bad as it's ever going to get. And it's only going to get better. And I'm going like, oh, maybe ornithology isn't so bad.
I can guarantee I can generate a bird.
Yeah, but you can't just go out and study the things.
So do you think that's I've very much embraced the whole AI thing because, like you, I can see it taking away other work from myself. So I've embraced it as a tool in my arsenal. Do you see it coming into your work? Oh,
like I've been Sorry, go ahead.
You dropped out there.
Yeah. So yeah, so sometimes like I have experimented with it a little bit with like some of the dance photography that I've done, where, you know, the subject themselves are so strong and so powerful. And so, you know, I want to put an environment in that haven't had the opportunity to photograph yet. Sometimes I'll play with AI then, but it's very light and very subtle, you know. Sometimes I'll just like, it's after I have exhausted looking through stock sites and like looking through my own libraries and everything. It's like once I've hit a wall where I'm like, okay, I can't find what I'm looking for, then I'll kind of like hop over there. But as far as like the larger composites yet, I haven't yet. I think on one hand, if I don't start to use it in that regard, I will just like start to be outpaced, and that is just the nature of it. So I have to kind of figure out a balancing act there for myself. Like it's a very personal thing. I mean, it also feels like, it just feels like cheating, man. Like sometimes like it's just so easy to generate like a really, really beautiful backdrop. But like what it feels like, you know, with the background pieces that I photograph now, like I remember what it smelled like. I remember like the feeling of the grass in my hands and like the cold wind in my hair and like my skin. And so it has like a connection for me it has a connection for me that's deeper. Whereas like with the AI stuff, like, yeah, I can generate beautiful stuff, but it doesn't quite, like people always say like, oh, but it's empty. It doesn't have the human soul. And like, I've seen incredible AI images that like shook me, where I was just like, wow, this is actually like really, really compelling stuff. And I love it. And there's like a bunch of shit that just nobody cares about, but that's just the nature of art anyways, of images. Is that most of the time we're looking at images, you're going like, yeah, I've seen like 100,000 of those before. It's really cool. It's really pretty. Lights up my dopamine, but like, that's it. But it feels for myself, because I don't have that experience of sitting down, you know, and like going out into the world and collecting these pieces. It does feel different, and it feels a little bit like cheating because of how easy it is. But at the end of the day, I don't think my clients care.
Do you think in the end it will end up almost being like a stock generator for you?
I mean, sometimes probably. I mean, I guess we'll see. Like, I think it's too early for me to really say, but I think it would be stupid for it not to. But I'm always going to exhaust the real life options first, because I really want to see, like, if I can get a stock license and put money in a real artist's pocket, I would prefer to do that first.
And where do you stand on the way that these AIs are actually created and how they're sourcing the art?
It's sticky. That's like another part of it that, like, I really am uncomfortable with, is it's really sticky. Like, I don't, knowing that it is technically, like, completely and totally unethical, that is weird for me. And I don't really like the AI answer for me isn't simple of just being like, yeah, this is totally awesome. I'm like, yeah, there's parts about it that are totally awesome, and then there's parts about it that don't really feel very good. And I think, like, there's a lot of us out there that kind of feel that way.
As somebody who's created a load of conceptual work in the past, it would be shocking to me if they hadn't scanned your work.
Oh yeah, for sure it has. Yeah.
Where would you stand on the sort of copyright for that in your own mind?
I'm just leaving that up to people smarter than me.
Is that something that you would pursue if you were able to prove, or?
I mean, like, how could you? It's so, if it was like scraped and an image was like a 0.0000001% of my image was scraped into creating something else, like, on one hand, I can see why everyone says, well, it's no different than going onto Pinterest and being inspired. And you're like, but on the other hand, like, I can see the other side of the conversation of, like, it is not the same as going onto Pinterest and being inspired, and I can see both sides really clearly. And so I'm always kind of like wrestling these two wolves in my head.
Yeah, there's some software as well that's recently been sort of
Nightshade.
Yeah, where it tricks it into thinking it's a cake, and
yeah.
Is that something that you would look into for your work, protecting it for future, or do you sort of?
I mean, I think that's a great idea. I think for people who don't want to be part of that system, I think that those tools should exist. And it's just going to become a perpetual arms race, like these things are. Just like with any kind of cybersecurity and everything, there's people trying to break the system and people trying to build the system. With Nightshade and other tools like that, there's going to be people building the system and people trying to get around the system. So it's just always going to be this escalating thing now.
And I think it's a double-edged sword for me. It's 50% amazing and 50% scary.
100%. Yeah. That is right where I sit on it. And I find a lot of the conversations around AI images, and people say AI, and I like to use the word like machine-made images, because technically it's not fully AI yet, even though the coding.
Yeah. It's not general AI. It's a large language model, isn't it? Basically.
Exactly. Yeah, and they're huge language models, but they're like, it's not fully AI yet. Even though when they look at the code, they don't actually know what the code is doing anymore. They can't translate it anymore. It still technically hasn't arrived at AI yet. So I like to use the word machine learning, but I mean it's like, there's so many voices that are shouting about this, that are either like, this is the best thing ever, or like, this is absolutely the worst thing ever. And those are kind of the two voices that we hear. But I think there's a lot of people, most people, as usual, in the middle that are going like, yeah, there's parts about this that are totally great, and there's parts about this that absolutely suck and are absolutely terrifying.
I mean, before you've done a load of work for, you've been in the business for 25 years now. And what would you say is your most favorite project that you've worked on?
Oh, it's like trying to pick your favorite kid. Not that I have any, but I mean, there's something about so many projects that are so fun for me, but I have to say that's a tough one. I think the Shibari Mermaid series, which ironically has no compositing in it whatsoever, is the only original idea I've ever had. To the point where it held up in court in copyright arguments against people who had, infringed the work. And it was just like, oh, they're actually I had one original idea. Like, that's nice. Like that I think is hard to do, especially in a world where everything for so long now, since the, digital art became a thing, to have an original thought that feels nice in the like the court of the internet. The court of the internet says like this person came up with this first. So you're just like, oh, that's very nice, guys. Like, thank you.
And that particular project is probably one of your biggest ones, isn't it? In terms of the internet fame side of things.
Yeah, because I don't make a lot of work that goes like viral, quote unquote, right? But those images still just like make the rounds everywhere. And that's like that's very cool. So
and the thing I like about them is from not the actual rope work itself, obviously you had a team and everything on set.
Yeah, big team.
But the actual photography side of it, it was relatively simple shot, wasn't it?
Very simple. Yeah.
Nice and clean.
Super clean. Yeah. Because I wanted it to look like pop culture art a little bit, and, looking at the images now, I can still see like how I would re-edit them to make them look nicer now. But
that's just growth as an artist though, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, so I was looking at Facebook reminded me yesterday about an image that I took 14 years ago. And I was looking at it and I was like, actually, the composition's like not horrible on it. I wonder if I went back and found that image and re-edited it to now, what it would look like with like modern skills.
It'd be a good post in terms of showing the before and then and now sort of thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because back in 2016 or 2017, something like that, I redid my website and I re-edited 230 composites. Just to like bring them up to snuff, because I was like, the photography was good enough, it wasn't like earth shattering or anything, but the digital art was like kind of janky, or I was using open source images but not using my own, and I was like, I wonder what it would be like if I like re-edited these with my own libraries with the skills that I have now. And most of it I gave it back to the models and was just like, hey, here's like a new version, and didn't really make the website, but some of it did. And I'm really like happy and pleased with the work that came out of it. So
your photography is very sort of clean in general in terms of being shot, I'm guessing shot for the use of composites.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
With the Shibari stuff, obviously that's more of a fringe element that people don't usually see in their feeds, and it went quite sort of wild. Has anyone in the community actually reached out to you because of that?
In the Shibari community? Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I was just at an event last night, and someone had mentioned, they were like, oh, you're the photographer that did the Shibari mermaids. Like, that was crazy. I was like, yeah, it's pretty nuts. We had like a pretty big team on, like just outside of frame. There's like a whole bunch of people going like, do we pull it down now? Do we go? And yeah, it's again, it's very nice and very sweet. And I appreciate it very much that, because Shibari has such a, it can be like a triggering topic for some people who don't necessarily understand it, to have all of these people suddenly be like, this is so interesting, like this is so beautiful, and this is so whatever. Because I try to photograph Shibari, and there's so many different styles of Shibari photography, and it's so beautiful. But I try to photograph it the way it feels for the subject, right? So what their experience is, I'm really kind of like watching their face, and I want to make it, I want to make it look the way it feels for them, which is like safe. And they kind of like, some people, they go within themselves. Some people, they kind of like go onto another plane. Like they go into all these amazing places, with like the body chemicals just kind of flushing through. And I don't know, it's just the way that I like to photograph it. I've tried experimenting with like different ways of photographing it, and the work is nice, but it didn't speak to me in the same way. Like I like to leave those styles to other people, because that is their visual voice, and I guess mine is different.
And having done some, not to the same degree, obviously, some Shibari work for people before, for clients, you mentioned something that is incredibly important in these shoots, and that's safety.
Safety. Oh my God. Safety is so important. It is everything. Absolutely everything. Like I get a lot of models now who are just like, oh, I really want to model for your Shibari project. I'm like, have you ever been tied up? Have you ever done suspension?
But not in a good way.
Yeah, well, exactly. So, and I always tell them, they're just like, oh, well, no. And I'm like, spend some time, like hire a rope artist, like take some classes, whatever, like, experience it and understand it, because a photo shoot is not the right place to be experiencing Shibari for the first time. I mean, we have like crash mats, we have like emergency scissors, safety scissors, we have blankets, we have juice boxes, we have like everything like ready to go, if we need it.
So many people don't see that side outside of the camera for a shoot like this. I like that you brought up the safety side of things for it.
It's key. It's so important. I mean, it's same thing with doing any of the aerialist stuff, like I do have aerialists who are professionals and they show up by themselves, but I'm always just like, bring a friend, like bring someone with you, like someone who can help out, like making sure that the studio is nice and warm, like bring a yoga mat, warm up, get your body limber, like
somebody who can drive the car if they break the neck.
Yeah. It's just like, like whenever you're doing any of those things that fall a little bit more onto the extreme side, you really do have to make sure that safety is everything, because you never want anything to go wrong. So on the off chance it does, you want to make sure that you are fully set up. Like I even have like a full first aid kit in my truck all the time. And it's just there if I need it. And hopefully it always stays sealed.
And the Shibari stuff was picked up by lens manufacturer, wasn't it?
Sigma. Yeah.
Sigma, yeah.
Yeah.
So that must have been a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, that was definitely a surprise. That was kind of shocking. Where I was just like, oh, that's really nice. I'm really surprised that, a company like that is willing to be like, yeah, let's back this project. And like, that's cool. Thank you.
Do you think that was almost like, because the Shibari thing started off as your project, it wasn't a commercial thing starting?
No, that's all personal project. Yeah. Because I mean, in a former life, that was something that I was really interested in and quite enjoyed and everything else. And then I was just like, what happens if I try photographing it? So a long time ago now, probably at least 10 years ago, probably longer, I did my first Shibari shoot. And then from there, I was just like, this is super fun. Like, I love this. How do we do more of this, but do it safely? So I'm very, very selective about who I photograph, the teams that I work with, the personalities that I'm working with. It takes me a long time, because I don't just photograph anybody who wants to do it. They really have to go through like many stages of vetting, and same thing with the rope artists as well. I try my best, with the information available to me, to choose wisely and make good choices. So, and that means like not saying yes right away to everybody.
And do you think that side of things helps you to sort of press the button for that producer side of your brain?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Because
the controlling of everybody and.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing with like the commercial shoots, right? So all of the pre-production and everything that goes into it ahead of time means that once we get to set, there's not really a lot of like messing around. Like every now and then, like, because I'll sit down, and even with like super experienced rope models, they can have a day where they just didn't sleep quite well enough, and maybe some of the stuff that we talked about, they're just not feeling that day. And I'm like, cool, not a problem. Like I run on the operation of, and pardon the French, but if it isn't a fuck yes, it's a no. So if I even notice like a little bit of hesitation, I'm just like, cool, what else can we do? Like what, or are you even feeling this today? Like maybe this isn't like your day, and that's fine. Cause I usually also try to have two models on set, so that we can give people a break. And then same thing with like I try to do, a couple of rope artists. And every now and then I don't, because like the rope artists, like their hands get thrashed. Like poor Heidi, this woman I work with all the time. We did one shoot, and we didn't have another person there. And by the end of the shoot, like her hands were so red, and I was just like, you poor noodle, like, because it's hard on the models, but it's also hard on the rigging team, right? So it's it's, you know, of all of them, I have the easiest job, and I really try to always be constantly checking in with everyone and just being like, how are you doing? How is your energy? Do you need a break? Like, you know, like, how do we make sure that this is like a safe and good experience for everybody involved?
And it's not always like climbing equipment, is it? It's while some of that will come in, like the land anchors and everything.
Yeah, that's all climbing equipment, 100%. And we use like multi-stage cams for like bringing up and down, so that God forbid a rope ever broke, which has never happened, but God forbid it does, they would at least fall slowly. And we also usually have a mat underneath as well, you know, just always, just in case, you know, nobody's ever laying on the cold concrete floor. But yeah, the rope that we're using is, you know, it's very soft. You know, we're not using nylon rope. God, I saw a photographer once in Texas tried copying an image that I made, and he had tied this poor girl up by himself in his basement and used nylon rope, and was just like, yeah, I had to shoot really quickly before the model expired. And I was just like, ah, you know, and he didn't know anything about shibari. He'd never tied anybody up before. He just kind of looked at it and went like, yeah, I could probably do that. And I was just like, heart palpitations. I was like, I can't. Like, that is so dangerous. Like,
you might as well just get to lie on a rail track.
Oh God, this, like, the poor girl, this poor woman, you know.
And do you find when you're leading the team on that when it comes to the lift that you have to sort of switch everybody on, or is it kind of automatic within the team? Because you've got people that you work with regularly now.
Yeah. I mean, everyone kind of knows the deal. I mean, even when I'm working with new models, you know, these models, they've performed on stage, a lot of them, right? So they perform as shibari models, so they know the deal. But with photography, the difference between photography and doing a stage show is that with photography, like, we can just put someone up, get the shot, put them right down. You know, like, we don't have to keep them up there for very long, because it isn't like we're not showing anything off, unless it's like we actually want the spin because we want the hair or whatever. Then it takes, you know, it can take a little bit longer to catch it just right. But yeah, I mean, it's quick. It's very, very quick. There's nobody staying up there for like minutes, because there's no point, except for self-riggers. So I work with a couple people who do their own self-tying, where they're doing the whole process other than like when they want to go up, and then they're going to communicate that to the person who's doing the lift. And that is like watching ballet, because they can stay up there for so long because they're completely in control of what's happening to their body. When they're like, oh, okay, this thigh is getting a little bit tired now, I'm just going to move out to this. And I just like photograph as they move. And I get these just like beautiful, wonderful, candid moments that I find I don't get as easily with static time. And
this, in your own words, was your only bit of original inspiration. How did
the Shibari mermaid?
Yeah. How did it develop?
Sorry.
What was the train that led you to that project?
I think I was talking to a friend of mine who she makes her own mermaid tails, and she can correct me on this if I'm wrong, because I've had a couple concussions since this conversation, so I could be remembering it completely wrong. But I remember her saying like, "Oh, it'd be really fun to do like a net made out of like different pieces of like fabrics and materials and stuff like that, and kind of making it look like scratchy and like scraggly and put together." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that actually would be really cool." And then because she'd also modeled some shibari stuff for me before, and then I was like, "Hold on a second, what if we tied you up and what if we did it with rope?" And she was just like, "Oh my God." But it's so much harder because like it's a silicone tail that she has. So it's another 65 pounds on the body. So like shibari is already like pretty snug and pretty tight. And adding that extra 65 pounds is a lot. So yeah, I don't know. It was a big ask, but now she's hooked. So no pun intended. Yeah.
And then were you surprised by the aftermath of it?
Completely. Did not see it coming. I mean, to this day, like Shakira licensed the pose from us.
Oh wow!
Yeah, which is crazy. So if you see her latest single and music video, there's like a pose in there that is the arms tied like this and being lifted up. Like they licensed that pose from us, which is just like, what is happening right now? Like that's so fun, but also so crazy. Like, I don't know. It's another one of those moments of like, that is I'm very grateful and I really appreciate it. And I was not prepared.
Has it led to any further work specifically because of that project?
Oh, nothing yet. Other than other people wanting to be a part of the project, which is great, which is really fun. But also, I'm so selective about who I want to work with on those projects. Like I said, a photo shoot is not the place for you to be doing your first time shibari. I'm not cool with that. Like other people are, and they're by all means take that and run with it. But I always err so far on the side of caution because I don't know. I think it comes from all the years of modeling, being put in like really uncomfortable situations where I was like, I don't really like this, but I was like too young and too naive to be able to say like, can we not? So I'm always
That's
trying
quite
to make
common
sure.
Still across the modeling industry.
Of course it is. Of course it is, because men and women and our non-binary friends, they're all young brains, and they don't necessarily always understand what their boundaries are because they don't necessarily know themselves very well yet. And that, of course, doesn't go for everybody, but there's always a percentage of people out there who are like that. And I was one of those people. And so I always tried to create an environment that younger me would have appreciated, which is like, hey, how are you feeling with this? I kind of noticed you're not really, quite as excited as before. What can we do? What can we change? Do you need a break? So, yeah, I definitely err probably too far on the side of caution, but I'm also okay with that because. And
you were kind of like the I think you described it to me 6 years ago as you were the queen of implied nude.
Well, now I just do nudes, so but I did implied nudes for a really long time, yeah, because I also found that I didn't want to create a type of work that I couldn't just like stand behind, and I wasn't feeling confident enough in the work that I was making that 10 years later I would be like, yeah, I'm super glad I did those nudes. So I worked really hard to make sure that I had strong boundaries with myself creatively. And since then I've kind of come to a place where I'm more confident in my skills and and the work environments that I can create for everybody, that it doesn't really bother me. I'm not the same type of cautious as I was 6 years ago.
And you started to put a lot more work into your YouTube channel now. How's that going?
Good. Yeah, I'm actually working on a video today because we did a Halloween shoot with the cats. So it'll be like a short little video. That's been just like kind of a weird stress release project, with everything kind of going on in my world right now. I just needed something that like there's a deadline, but also it's a soft deadline. So it's something to keep me accountable, something like, to work towards, but also it's not client work that has to get done. I should have started it years ago, but with the lifestyle that I led, that was just impossible. There was no way with that much traveling to make a YouTube channel, not by myself anyways. It's impossible. So,
and do you still have your Patreon?
I do still have my Patreon. Yeah. I have been quiet on there for the last week and a half. I actually have some updates coming up for them right now. So yeah, Patreon is like where like all of the nude work goes, because I can't put it anywhere else. I have some of it goes on my website, but only of course the stuff that I really love. And then like all the, behind the scenes of stuff that's coming on the YouTube channel and everything else. Like it's kind of like the early pre-sneak peek kind of look at things of the stuff that's coming down the pipeline. Same thing with like the art book project and updates with that. Those are all in there as well.
And when you first started it, you never really liked the idea of putting your work behind a paywall.
Yeah.
Has that changed over the time or?
Yeah, I mean, so yes and no, because I mean, I want my work to be available for everyone to see it. But also at the same time, like it costs a lot of money to do these things. And so, if there's people out there who are just like, yeah, this is really awesome, I'm like down to support this projects or these projects in whatever way, like it is appreciated, because I also realize that, there are people who I like to support financially for their projects, and I love being able to help them along with that. And so it kind of changed how I see what Patreon is about, because before I felt it was just like kind of like putting a hat out, which isn't accurate or fair, right? I mean, there's lots of, like I've found like tons of GoFundMe projects and Kickstarter projects and everything else. So, Patreon isn't any different. It is, I'm creating work, and most of my work that goes out into the public is, well, actually that's not true. It's about 50-50 personal work and client work. But, all of that personal work, it does take a lot of energy and a lot of time and a lot of resources. And if there are people who feel like that, spending $3 a month or something like that, or $5 a month is like, that means something to them, that's great. Because now I have experienced that on the flip side, where there are projects where I was just like, 100%, I want to help fund this. I want to help like make this, whatever it is, real for somebody. And then like, being able to get things from that. I basically just like grew as a person. I had some more experiences and I was like, I was wrong and this is nice.
Would you think it's more akin to the sort of an artist being ready to actually be paid for their work?
I don't know, because I haven't had any problem being paid for my work ever. But I think it was just like, I didn't understand. I couldn't wrap my head around the philosophy of, people just being willing to give $2 or $5 a month towards like an artist just creating stuff. I couldn't wrap my head around it. But then I became that person who likes being able to give $2 or $5 a month to somebody who's creating great work. And then I was just like, oh, I get it now, but I just couldn't understand it before. So like apart from some of the nude work, all of that work still eventually does come out into the public. Like some of the stories do not, some of the like voting on like, names of stuff or whatever, like it's, I don't know. It's like, it's a whole thing, but yeah.
So for anybody that's listening to the podcast, when this podcast goes out and the article goes out, there will be the links to Renee's YouTube site, her Patreon, and her website as well. Just in case anybody wants to check that out and become a follower.
I always appreciate it. I'm definitely learning the YouTube ecosystem. That is its own thing, and I didn't really understand how much of its own thing it really is. I'm a slow adopter to this one, but I'm actually really enjoying the challenge. It's really fun. So hopefully people will like the next video that's coming out.
So where do you see, coming towards the end now, where do you see your future going forwards?
Oh man, I used to know that answer, and I have no idea anymore. Like really, AI art completely changed the game. Like AI, like machine made images completely changed everything. And faster than I thought it would. Like I thought when Midjourney 3 came out, I think it was 3, was the first time I saw it. And I was like, oh, that accelerated faster than I thought it was going to by quite a bit. And then Midjourney 4, and I was like, oh, damn.
Have you ever dipped into Stable Diffusion where you put your own images in?
So I haven't dipped into it, but I follow quite a few artists who do a lot of work in Stable Diffusion and like the different models that are available there. It is crazy. It is totally crazy what people can do. And I haven't quite figured it out yet, what that's all going to look like. And there's a part of me that's just like, just make a side project and just embrace it and just see what happens with it. And then on the other hand, I'm like, but I really love the process of how I make images.
Well,
now.
there is now the title, isn't there? Of it's now an official job where you can be a prompt engineer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and by all means, like there's people out there who are coming up in the industry where like that's a great opportunity for them, and they should take it.
For me, I see it very much along the lines of more sort of classical musicians versus DJs, where you've got to find another sort of outlet for it.
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, there are still classical musicians who are doing beautiful, incredible work. there are still photographers who use film who are doing beautiful, incredible work. On the topic of YouTube, there's a guy who runs a channel called Grainy Days, and like his work is all film, and I love it. You know, like I will never take those photos. I have no interest in film photography, but that doesn't mean I don't appreciate it and I don't watch the videos when they come up. You know, so I think there's just always going to be people who are interested in every type of art that is out there, and you know, if you're willing to take up space in whatever space that is, then that matters. That's important.
I think that's a good note to finish it on. I want to say thank you for coming onto the show. I've really enjoyed it's been more of a catch up for us, but
yeah, it has been definitely a catch up. It's been a while.
But I've enjoyed the conversation as well, and I know other people will. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on my website, reneerobin.com, and it's Robin with a Y. You can find me on YouTube at Renee Robin, Instagram at Renee Robin Photography, and everything else, some version of Renee Robin Photo, or Renee Robin Photography, depending on how many characters each website lets me have.
And if you're listening to this, that's Robin with a Y.
Mm-hmm.
Not the bird.
Yeah, not the bird. Yeah, not the bird. Yeah,
okay.
I got the cosplay hair though.
So that's it for now. I hope everybody enjoyed the episode. Just remember, it's easy if you put the work in. This is the Photography Junkie.